The entire universe is a creation of the mind. And if you study Alfred North Whitehead and his line of thinking, he coined a word, prehension. What exactly is prehension? That is to seize.
Welcome back to Astro Health. Today we would like to know about mind and diseases related to mind and if medical astrology can be of any help.
Yeah. So talking about the mind, we're into something totally abstract. We have talked so much about the mind, but I don't think anybody has seen it properly because it doesn't have a shape like water. And imagine the mind takes the shape of the possessor, like water taking the shape of the vessel. Like water flows down, even the mind goes down, like it gets depressed. And it's always a good idea to understand the nature of the mind. If you have to observe the mind, it is only by the use of the mind itself. Yeah. So, okay, let's not go into the abstract side of all that. But there are a few connections between philosophy, the the creation itself, contrary to what people think. The entire universe is a creation of the mind. And if you study Alfred North Whitehead and his line of thinking, he coined a word, prehension. What exactly is prehension? That is to seize. Either it can be conscious or unconscious. So the mind is coming into being when it is seizing itself or seizing something and then recording it. So the mind exists only when you are aware of something. A perception occurs in two modes, that is causal efficacy or physical prehension, and presentational immediacy, that is conceptual prehension. There is a concept. You imagine something. How does the child gain in memory? Now, the child imagines when it is crawling, it comes across an obstacle. It realizes that if you crawl so much and try to overcome that, it might be wounded. So, next time when it crawls, it imagines that there is an obstacle. And from that imagination, it develops memory of that obstacle. And from that memory, it develops what is known as intelligence. Right? So, intelligence is.
To be cautious.
That's right. So intelligence, it understands that it's not supposed to just crawl the way it likes. There will be an obstacle. So that the root cause of that intelligence is actually imagination. So memory is a consequence of imagination. You remember something. Now imagination is not something related only to the future. Supposing I say at the age of 16, when you met so and so, how was that meeting? You have to go back into imagination, recollect and reconstruct the whole thing using memory. So memory is not something related only to the past, vice versa, if you think that way. So astrology is not just about predicting the future, it's about predicting the past as well. So imagination runs across the past, present, and the future. And then you have this uh, concept in astrology, the fifth house from the Lagna, that is ascendant. That determines the kind of thinking, the approach, and the attitude of a person. The mind, per se. How does the mind work? What is really influencing the mind of a person that can be deciphered from the fifth house from Lagna, that is the ascendant. All said and done, it is moon basically. So an astrologer will always try to locate where the moon is, whether he's afflicted or somebody is aspecting it. And the strength or otherwise of moon in a horoscope will give away a lot of clues about how the person's mind works. Does it work with emotion? Does it work always only on the artistic side, or whether he imagines well, whether he gets irritated, whether he always has negative thoughts, how soon does he get depressed? All such matters come from the position of the moon, and of course, the strength of the fifth house from the ascendant. But having said that, there is a particular mention in the structure of the brain. You have a part known as amygdala, Amygdela. These are two almond shaped clusters of nuclei, just symmetrical. Now, the most baffling phenomenon in human existence is that every part of the human body has a wonderful symmetry of its own. Why is it that 2 feet are similar? The two palms, the two lobes of the brain. In fact, this symmetry is something which is not just accidental. It is a great baffling design of the Almighty. Isn't it?
True.
Now let us see. Now somewhere where this symmetry gets obstructed or gets into an inconsistency, you see that there is trouble. So when I'm talking about this amygdala, the two almond-shaped clusters of nuclear processing of memory happens here. They're just two almond-shaped things, and these two determine the kind of decision making, emotional responses, fear, anxiety, aggression. Now, the doctor would talk about the limbic system. The neuroscientist would connect this to the limbic system in the human body. Now, if you go back a little and see what I have talked about, I have mentioned processing of memory, decision making, emotional responses, fear, anxiety, and aggression. How do you connect them? All of them are connected. Because if somebody is angry, it may not be because he is irritated. It may be because he feels insecure. Anger is sometimes an outburst of sheer insecurity and fear psychosis. Now, somebody is not angry because he's always short tempered. That's not the case. Sometimes the person is insecure and he feels that he has been neglected. He becomes angry. So, anger is an offshoot of fear, contrary to what many think. And again, anxiety. Suddenly you feel that you're so anxious about so many things that you feel that people are not really responding to your call. The person becomes aggressive. So, the response, the emotional responses. Sometimes you see a person not really responding properly. And somebody says, "Yeah, look here, you got a Nobel Prize. It has just been announced." The person says, "Okay, I got it." And somebody is not happy when you give them a very nice news. You say that they see this is it. You have achieved something. You've got an award. The person is not even relating to it. The problem is the person may not be living in the present. Most of those who do not live in the present are highly emotionally imbalanced. There is an imbalance in the person, not balanced properly. Now, the right hemisphere of amygdala is associated with negative emotion, that is, role in the expression of fear and in the processing of fear. There are a variety of reasons how people process their fear. Somebody writes a story, somebody tells a story, somebody constructs a story, somebody goes on saying things which do not exist. Somebody tries to coax you, inject some wrong ideas into the other person. That is also a way of expressing his fear. The processing of fear, that is inducing stimuli, the way you assess threats, and this is the episodic memory. For instance, there is a bad episode, it gets retained in a person. So you do have a lot of problems, as you asked, the diseases related to the mind. So the physical construction, the amygdala or the nervous system, has a role to play. That is on the physical plane. Again, when the person's imbalance in emotions, they create trouble. Insecurity creates trouble. Sensitivity to a lot of things, and sometimes depression. Sometimes because of the nervous issues and even issues related to the genetic code, there might be spasms or fits, and the person might swoon, and sometimes deep depression, deeply depressed conditions which happen too early. So these are all sometimes that might lead to a bipolar situation like schizophrenia. So they can be genetic, mostly they are inherited, but it can be acquired as well. But the indication will be in the horoscope. But
You was telling about something related to moon.
yes, more, yes. Now, astrologically speaking, moon is not just the moon you see as a satellite of the planet Earth. If you go a bit into the Vedic studies, now on a physical plane, what you eat also influences your mind. So you have the seven spheres, like on the material plane you have Anna, that is the food which you take. It is related to Agni basically. It is known as Bhur. You have the seven lokas, now Bhur, Bhur, Swa, Maha, Jana, Tapaha, Satyam. So Anna represents the material, or Bhur is Agni, is making it digest. And Prana, that is breath, and that is energy basically. That is Vayu, that is Bhuvar, that is atmosphere. Mind, Manas. The emotional mind is ruled by Soma. Now, Soma is the spiritual entity behind the moon. The moon is what you're seeing, but moon is essentially a consequence, a result of Soma, which is Soma is nothing but Sa Uma. That is energy personified. It is Shiva. That is why Somavara, the Monday, is represented. Is the day when we worship Lord Shiva. It is Sa Uma basically. The energy personified. The energy is latent. Energy is always primordial. It is pre-existing. But then, how does it take shape? That is when Shiva and Parvati are together. So that becomes Sa plus Uma. So when that takes shape, you have the flow of energy. So that is Soma. So Soma Rasa, that is taken during Yajna. It is not an intoxicating drink or something. Soma Rasa is symbolical of the flow of energy. So that Soma is the Suvarloka, the lower heaven, isn't it? Now you have the Vijnana, that is intelligence, that is Surya, represented by Surya, or Maharloka, is the higher heaven. Now you have Ananda, that is bliss, that is or love, for instance. That is again Soma. Now I am talking about this specifically because we are talking about the moon. Because this is again the Jana Loka, this is related to creation. So now creation is, as I said earlier, is a consequence of bliss experienced inside the mind. Now there are two issues here. One is the mind, bliss experience inside the mind, both are ruled by Soma. The process. Now what is true, reality or the process? It is only the process which is existing, because the human creation is a result of the processes. But once the process has created something else, it is only the process which remains. That is not reality because it is not constant. You get into a process, you recreate, you are there. So Jagan Mithya is something like this. That creative process is existing. But what has been created owing to that process is not permanent. So it is treated as Maya. That's not existing. What is existing real is only the Almighty. So that is a philosophy out there. And the Chit, that is consciousness, again back to Agni. Tapaha, the Tapoloka, Tapas. The Sat, that is being, controlled by Indra or Vayu again. You have that is the Satyaloka, that is truth. So that truth is totally something else. So these are the seven spheres. Out of these seven spheres, we can talk endlessly on that. But we have two places where Soma has appeared. One is the Suvarloka, lower heaven, the emotional mind. And again, Ananda or bliss.
Yes.
So the connection here is how quickly do you get excited, how quickly you come down to equanimity. The process which is creating and sustaining, that is ruled by Soma. And that spiritual entity's representative is moon. So we look at the moon in a horoscope. Now, if this process is disturbed, the mind is disturbed. And if it happens too often, we call that a disease. So, diseases related to the mind are because the process and the symmetry or the equanimity which is supposed to be inside the process of Soma, if that is disturbed, you have diseases related to the mind. Now, again, if you go to the Chandas, Soma relates to various meters like energy of delight. And the Anushtup Chandas with 32 syllables, in which the Valmiki Ramayana has come out, is represented by Soma. So the syllables we use, the kind of music we hear, or the kind of repetitive words which we have, all are related to correcting this symmetry, basically. Correcting the imbalance in the symmetry. So to retrieve the symmetry of the process in which the mind works, that is what is known as tapas. So there is rhythm everywhere. You have to capture that rhythm and then ensure that you go back to that rhythm.
You are talking of cure now.
Yes, that is a see. Unless you find out where the problem is, how do you talk about cure? So you locate the position of the moon, and interestingly, having said that moon is something to be studied in the horoscope, how do you study the moon? In simple terms, let's not go deep into the complexities of astrology. Those people who are born on a new moon or on an Amavasya or in and around just 2 days with around the new moon or the full moon or in and around 2 days around the full moon are prone to these excitements to once in too often. Because the waves of the ocean will be either too calm on Amavasya and rising rapidly on a full moon. So there is no equanimity on both days. The sea might appear calm, but it is lacking in energy. Now, the sea is boisterous. It might appear too good, too healthy, but then no, it is not having the balance. So we need the balance. So people born in and around those days are getting into trouble because of the predetermined imbalance inside their system when they were born.
I have one doubt. See, ordinary person who is not born on new moon day or full moon day, does he react peculiarly on new moon day or a full moon day, provided he is in problems or something?
Yes, good question. Because see, that person might not have a disease as it is, but as you said, on that particular day, he might recollect something like an episodical thing, what we have just said, and he might behave abnormally. Secondly, people born in the Vrishchika Rashi or the Vrishchika Lagna, because that is where the moon is debilitated, that we call Nicha. There is a certain element of turmoil in the mind which is preset. They may not be talking about it, but they hold it very close to their hearts. And secondly, because if the moon is afflicted, suppose the moon is afflicted associated by Mercury, then there is a clear nervous situation of the person, because Mercury rules the nerves. Now, supposing the fifth lord is afflicted, there is Saturn, Rahu, or some other fiery planet out there, or aspecting moon, then there is the mind is inside a turmoil, and unless there are other mitigating factors, the person is always troubled with something else. The person doesn't appear natural to people. There are reactions and actions, interactions which are peculiar. Sometimes, now the third house from the Lagna is indicative of the way the person's mind actually works. Though the fifth house is related to the mind, the intellect, and all that, but how the person comes forth, whether he is presentable to others or not,
Execution.
That is given away by the third house. For instance, somebody says there is a protocol in a party, you have to wear a tie and go there. The person may not do that. He may say, I would rather prefer to be myself. I don't want to be ruled by anybody else. I want to sound peculiar. Again, you have a tendency of saying something which might hurt others unnecessarily, and trying to hold on to your own opinion and make a fool of yourself. These are all aspects related to the third house. Now, if you ask me from first principles, if you say, let us see if the horoscope is giving away a quality of the mind, or maybe a depressed mind, or an inherited situation, I would suggest the astrologer first to look at the sign Gemini, Mithunam. If Mithunam is afflicted, so Mithunam is owned by Mercury, the natural third house. And if the natural third house, that is Mithunam, is afflicted by an opponent like Mars, Kuja, if he is not a yoga karga for that lagna, there are other combinations. You shouldn't jump to conclusions. Or if Mithunam is having, let us say, for example, if Saturn is in Mithunam, then the person will start having a very peculiar attitude. Like Saturn doesn't believe in mixing with others. He believes in being alone. He wants to be reserved. If you have Mars with Mercury, the person would like to fight it out physically. He is more martial rather than diplomatic. So the bent of the mind is to go ahead and get into the storm rather than work it out. So Mithunam is one sign which will give away a lot about the person's mental attitude and what the person might be really suffering from. Sometimes people are too emotional and sometimes they don't react. Sometimes they become bland. And so the study of the mind is not easy basically. So again, whether the mental condition of imbalance, let us say emotionally or whatever, as I said, the amygdala is not doing well, that has a terminal impact, like false decision making or losing opportunities, not doing the right thing at the right time, and falling a prey to depression. All that can be studied from the fourth and the eighth houses of the Lagna. And as I said, we will continue this episode and think about how to correct these imbalances. Now, the good thing about astrology is the first question you asked was whether astrology can be of any help.
Yes.
Unfortunately, many think that the diseases related to the mind and the brain are almost incurable. I can tell you it's not true. They are curable. Most of them. But because medical science has not gone into the holistic aspect of the functioning of the mind or even the brain, you can ask the doctors what is the percentage of the brain which they have really understood. Even today, it's a very small percentage. Medical science has not made great advances in neuroscience at all. But what you eat, how you eat, how do you breathe? Now it's only whether recently the doctors have been suggesting do some breathing exercises.
For everything they suggest.
Yeah, but
most of the things.
yes, but how was this maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago? Which doctor who has studied MBBS has talked about breathing? I don't think when I visited doctors when I was a child or maybe 16 or 17 years old, no doctor would talk about breathing exercises. But today, if you go with
It's the norm of the
the hypertension situation or maybe even with diabetes, the doctors would say yes, do breathing exercises. But
Yes.
is breathing exercise a part of the curriculum of MBBS? It's a point blank question. So the point is, science is something which updates itself using a lot of things around, which helps the cause, of solving a problem. So there's nothing wrong if you really understand the mind and the brain using a holistic situation. Because breathing is the most essential thing of a human anatomy. Do you breathe voluntarily or you breathe involuntarily? How do you breathe? That has an impact on the mind as well. And as I said, yes, if I see a horoscope, let me tell this to you in a very practical manner. I find that the person has an inherited disease of the mind because it comes genetically. And in my experience, this genetic code concerning the mind has more to do with the maternal side rather than the paternal side. If a maternal uncle is having a problem, let us say a bipolar disease, invariably it comes down to the side. And sometimes, because in the study of astrology, you do have the fourth house and the fifth house, the eighth house. The sixth house again is for diseases, for all diseases. That indicates more from the mother side. If you see people having the heart disease, the maternal uncle has had a heart issue. The nephew would surely have this. It's a time tested thing. And
You mean to say most of the diseases?
not most, but diseases which are of more significance than others, they are from the mother side, not from the father side. Because the body Pitrukaraka is father, no doubt about it. But the process, the soma, which creates the person, is from the mother side. So mind is from the moon, and moon is also for the mother. You say Chanda Mama. So that's how it is. So when I see a horoscope with such a configuration, I ask one or two questions about breathing. Have you ever thought about this? The way we breathe reveals the way our forefathers have breathed and what we have done earlier in previous life cycles. So, how are we supposed to breathe? Can we control this? Yes, the answer is yes. So, today I have just told you about the connection between esoteric astrology, that is spiritual astrology, the way creation has been made, the philosophy of astrology. See, I always don't like astrologers when they say they have no clue to the understanding of the universal laws. They only know 1 plus 1 is 2, or maybe the 12 houses, Navamsa, this, that, yogas. No. An astrologer is supposed to go into the holistic approach of philosophy and the subject of astrology. The subject of astrology is not distinct from the subject of philosophy. Because astrology comes from the sun, basically. So, it is a Vedanta. You can't say, I can only tell you the yogas and whatever, but I don't understand why, if that planet is here, this happens. I can't tell you the reason for that. Because if that planet is there, what is going to happen is available in a lot of books. You can refer to B.B. Raman's book and say, oh, this is it. But why is that result happening? If that planet is there, is not something which will be told to you by anybody. You have to contemplate and interpret from the Vedas. So we will go further because this
One
is
small doubt.
yes.
We have dashas. Periodically they speak of dasas, no? So Chandra dasa is there. Will the person be affected because of Chandra dasa? His mind will be affected, or he acts.
Yes, if supposing his mind is disturbed, the moon is afflicted by Rahu or somebody. The person has Rahu dasa, the mind will be totally disturbed.
Rahu dasha, not Chandra dasa.
Now, and similarly, of course, you will have the Chandra Bhukti or Antardasha inside Rahu Mahadasha, and vice versa. So Chandra will appear everywhere, and Rahu will appear in each Mahadasha. So that aspect will come into the system. If you are careful, you will avoid taking decisions during that point of time, because one weak moment you may take a disastrous decision that may end up in a tragedy. Right? So you have to be careful with that.
Rahu dasha, Chandra bhukti.
No, what is afflicting the mind, and why is the mind reacting in such a manner? That can be very clearly studied from the horoscope. So as you said, one can be careful. So that is what the astrologer says when he says that, see, now these days you are passing through this, so be careful, don't do that, avoid this, don't sell your property now, wait for some time. Why do we tell that? Because there's something of that sort. You tend to make a wrong judgment. Your analysis may be mistaken. Sometimes we say on that particular day you will be very silent. Because you may be right in your own right. But if the planet is not doing well for you, then whatever you say may be mistaken and misunderstood and misinterpreted, and that may lead to a lot of complications in the future. So that's how it is supposed to be interpreted, rather than saying this is a superstition and this and that. But the people have experienced such phenomena time and again.
No, I heard this Chandradasa. People will be acting very emotionally and in a very emotional manner. So one has to be careful. This is it a superstition or?
No, it can't be straight away said that in a Chandra Dasha everybody will be acting in an emotional manner. It's not such 1 plus 1 2.
We have to see the combination
Yeah,
of other
the
planets.
point is now when I say somebody is having a bipolar issue or a depressed condition of the mind or a schizophrenic, now it's not exclusive only to some people. All of us experience conditions of bipolar or episodic situations once or twice in one's lifetime. No person is normal. So even doctors would say that if somebody is having perfect health, is no more. The point is that whether certain parameters are working properly or not. Now, how many times can we say that my mind has always been still and it has been completely with equanimity and there is perfect balance? In that case, I would be somewhere in a forest meditating upon something.
Yes.
Because we interact with a lot of people, with a lot of we go through a lot of experiences. Our minds are prone to the kind of inconsistency and emotional outbursts will be there. That is human nature. Nothing wrong in it, absolutely. Even having a bipolar issue, sometime or the other, is not a big deal. But if the person gets caught in it, he's trapped, he's imprisoned. That is a worrying feature because the doctor will have to see a lot of aspects about it. But then he goes back into the genetic code, or again he tries to cure by giving some sedatives. So that is suppose the poets, the artists, sometimes intellectuals, great scholars, they do experience a lot of things. Somebody says, I'm able to see God right in front of me. He keeps talking to me. Now, how do you conclude? You say this person is having a personality issue, and he says that he is seeing God, or God is he. Sometimes people say God appears in dreams and he says something. Is it nervous exhaustion or is it an extraterrestrial happening? There's a very thin line. See, the point is somebody says, I can visualize things which are happening. Now, somebody says, no, I'll be driving tomorrow and certainly I'm going to fall. It can be nervous weakness.
Yes.
He's a highly nervous person, so when he can't drive properly, he'll fall. Now, you can't eulogize him by saying that he's a great astrologer or God has given him a message and he's saying something of this sort. So that's not the way to proceed. Once or twice, if somebody says, I'm going to fail in an exam, you will. If you're confident about failing, you will fail. So the mind is something like this. Whether your actions and reactions are normal, you are intelligible. But what you say is with reason. Whether you're reasonable, you're consistent in your behavior, whether you're acceptable to others, and you're similar to people around you. That's what is more important. So, it doesn't mind, you don't have to mind small aberrations. But what is getting into your system as a habit has to be understood clearly. And then you need the attention of a good psychiatrist. But above all, astrology is far ahead of the psychiatry subject, which is meant for curing the mentally disabled. And if I say this now, somebody will say you are a schizophrenic, but I'm not. The point is that it is difficult to believe that there is a huge science to be explored regarding the working of the mind. And human endeavor has no limits. And when you talk about that, if somebody says this is metaphysics and this is esoteric and something too ridiculous, you can label anything. But the truth is that, yes, even astrologers are trying to solve a problem. And today, the biggest problem the society is facing is depression. I can tell you that I can talk on end about the way astrology gives great clues about depression and the way it can be cured. And doctors will agree that if depression is pathological and it is too habitual, it has entered and settled down, it opens the gates towards the bipolar disease. So you start having delusions. One starts hearing a lot of things which are not there. So, because you will remember a movie, Karthik Calling Karthik. He has explored a very unattended area of human life. That is, a person wants to be something, person is got tagged with something, person is expecting something to happen, doesn't happen. And he comes to realize that, and he creates a situation wherein he thinks, or rather he believes that it is happening. The picture is so solid. Sometimes one would have experienced a dream, or maybe when he is totally exhausted, he's had a great nap, he's just sleeping, deep sleep, slumber, and he sees something so solid and so real in his dream, he can't even say it was a dream.
It happens.
It happens. Now, what is true? The dream or what happened inside the dream? Do you dream because you're thinking? Do you dream? Yeah, you just dream because some extraterrestrial thing has just crossed your mind? Or do you dream, or voluntarily you want somebody to appear in your dream? Is it possible? It's not in your hands. So the mind is all over, it spreads all over the place. But there are clues in astrology which tell you why it happens. There are clues also, just not the clues. We will dwell deep into that into the next episode. We'll take case by case.
Let's move on to one question, one answer.
Yeah.
We were talking about breathing and other things.
Yeah.
So, how does breathing indicate the state of mind and how to overcome this?
Have you ever observed your breathing?
No.
It sounds very simple, but it gives great results. Whether your breathing influences your observation, whether your observation changes the way you breathe.
Observation changes the way we breathe.
Yes, of course.
It changes.
Yeah.
Once we start observing.
Yes, because it's like a child. A child is playing with some toys. The child is not aware that you're observing. It plays differently. It's enjoying. Suddenly, you're just observing like this. You don't want to make a sound. You don't want to disturb the child. But suddenly it realizes that somebody is observing. It starts playing differently. Why is the question? Because mind is about awareness. The mind exists only by awareness, otherwise, it doesn't exist. It comes into being only through awareness, it's through consciousness. When you're watching a dream, wonderful dream, you like it. Now the dream is coming to an end slowly. You also slowly get that awareness that this dream is ending. Sometimes you want the dream to continue, but you are slowly coming out of it. You're waking up. So when awareness is catching up with something else which is happening simultaneously, it influences that which is happening. Yes or no?
Yes.
So it is through awareness that your mind will also change. And awareness is similar to a mind. You have to cultivate awareness again only through your mind. So that is why it is said that intellect is deeper. When you create awareness, the outer layer, it turns into buddhi. And when it turns into buddhi, you can draw, the mind automatically starts drawing from this intellect. So that energy which you give from buddhi, the intellect to intelligence, is different and differently located as well. So the functioning of the mind on an outer layer will undergo a metamorphosis once you just lend some awareness to the mind that there is something else behind you which is guiding you. So that changes the structure of the respiration, the way you breathe. Suppose you pick up, you can experiment, you pick up an old album which has black and white photos of your childhood, the people who liked you, you liked those, somebody who is no more, or wonderful experiences you had in school and college, you received an award or something. You're just going through the album. Consciously observe your breathing. It undergoes a change. Because that which you have gone through becomes episodic. And when you are going through that again, it's the reality. But inside the album, it's now like fiction because you can't even imagine that you were like that during those days. So awareness is getting ignited. When that is getting ignited, your breathing is undergoing a change. This is what all yogic experts tell you, because breathing...
I have one observation. We will be doing pranayam before doing any puja or something. Is this the reason behind it?
Yes, because you are asked to do dhyana first. How is this puja done? First you have to purify yourself.
Then?
Internally and externally.
Yes.
Then you have to exercise restraint over all your senses, sensory organs. Not think about silly things. And then come down to the perfect state of equanimity. That's why people say don't do anything loud and disturb others, and because others will be cursing you. We don't do pujas for show off. Puja is basically an act of a pietistic act where you have to evolve yourself. And nobody is bothered if you don't do it. No God is going to complain. And because you are inside a poise, a situation of complete poise and structural balance. Then they say, first and foremost, you will say, just hold your nose and say, Om, 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 and so on.
Pranayam.
Yeah. Now, that is what, these are the 7 lokas which I just mentioned.
Yes, yes.
There is a transversal going across all the 7 lokas when you do that. You may not be aware of that. All the seven are ignited when you use that. It's not an ordinary syllable. So you get into that equanimity, and in whatever condition you are, because you are now sitting down to do something very interesting, something more powerful than
Maybe spiritual.
yeah, spiritual, and it's an extraordinary thing which connects all the worlds. So you have to be on that level. You do, so they say you do, just hold it once and do pranayama. In fact, I would suggest do pranayama directly and utter those bhu, so and all. And then you realize that you're now in that happy state
Yes.
where soma is really acting. See, soma, which is a process, which is the real meter, will not get ignited unless your breathing is proper.
Okay.
It is vice versa. Those people who have had a normal soma process may be breathing normally, but let them also not be too proud about that. But there will be a situation where even that soma will get disturbed. We are living in a very rustic world, a kind of world which will present all silly things to you. These days you have to handle all kinds of information which are no good. So, because nothing is hidden from anybody, these soma levels are disturbed. Even for a child born today, no doubt about it. So, breathing is a great way of, bringing everything to equanimity. So after that you do the puja, and then you relate to your mind is you're happy कि भाई I've done this, and then you are related to something higher than the usual material world. So you have uttered, you have chanted some good things there. There are good slokas and invocations to the higher beings. What is all this about? Puja is nothing but trying to relate to the higher plane. That's it. You come out of that, and then you are back into this realm. So once in a day, when you have reminded your mind that this is the equanimity which is going to help you throughout, the mind will do wonders. That is why people say at least for half an hour do puja or get into that dhyana and meditation into breathing, so that it's a great tonic to the entire body-mind system. We do not know what we go through every day.
So the first step to jhana is
This is
pranayama.
Pranayama. So it does wonders. So you said, how is it? Whether how to understand that the mind is disturbed? There's a great technique. Now on a Sunday morning, if you are getting up on a Sunday morning, by Suryodaya, sunrise, if you are breathing through your right nostril, you have a normal mind. That is a Surya Nadi. And on a Monday, if you are breathing through your left nostril, that is a Chandra Nadi.
Both the nostrils work, no?
We are not supposed to breathe through both the nostrils. The doctor will tell you that you have to breathe through one and leave through the other. Okay. That is what is breathing all about. That is why God has given us two nostrils. You have to do only through one pipe. One would have been sufficient. So, the nadi, the hour, the hora, the lagna, the position of the moon, the rashi, the yogas, these are all intrinsically related. So, if you look at the horoscope, I can say, gentlemen, you never breathe normally. So, if on a Sunday morning, you are breathing through your right nostril naturally, not by a volition, you are healthy. If you are not able to do that, there is something wrong with you. Better not take decisions when the breathing is not happening this way. So, having said that, now you have concluded that even the doctor will say yes. If you are not breathing through the right nostril or the left nostril or the way You're supposed to breathe. So you're in trouble. So what is the precaution? What is the cure? How do you counter this? Yes. You breathe the way you are
Practice.
supposed to breathe. That is pranayama.
Practice.
Breathing the way you breathe is not pranayama. Breathing the way you are supposed to breathe is pranayama. Or sometimes dhyana is what? Not doing anything. Not contemplating on anything is what is dhyana? Removing all thoughts. You can't pick up some thought and remove it. You have to allow the thought to happen and then make an exit from your mind. That is what is dhyana all about. And when you are perfectly alright, when you have eliminated, you have seen that no other thought is really entering, don't force anything on the mind, and not even on your breathing. We are natural people. Let it happen naturally, but give time and awareness to the mind to do all that. That is enough. It's not a great deal. It's not so difficult. You have to pull up everything, create a situation, put some music out there, and then remember some great yogi. And no, it's not necessary. Try to be natural to yourself. Breathing will happen the way it is supposed to. But some extraneous things enter, it gets disturbed. That's how it is. So, having said that, if you're trying to correct your breathing, yes, a lot of things get corrected inside. And one of those is the human mind. We will discuss further. There is a lot to discuss, rich in substance. Thank you. So, diseases related to the mind are because the process and the symmetry or the equanimity which is supposed to be inside the process of soma, if that is disturbed, you have diseases related to the